Hey everyone, welcome to Buzzing About Romance, a quick shot of romance. I am Becky, and for this quick shot, I am joined by Carolina. Hi, Carolina.
Hey, Becky.
So we'll just be really honest. I kind of strong-armed you into reading this book, but you were not sad.
No, I wasn't sad, and I'm glad you did. I enjoyed the book.
Yeah, and we have a couple things to talk about too, because we were lucky enough to get the audio and the ebook, and I have some thoughts.
I have thoughts too.
Okay.
So this is perfect.
So on this episode of A Quick Shot of Romance, we are reviewing the Tryst by Lauren Blakely. This is book 2 in the Virgin Society. If you would like the synopsis from Goodreads, make sure you hit up our on-the-shelf show notes at buzzingaboutromance.com. Because we have so many things to talk about. I don't want to waste minutes on a blurb. Plus, I don't read them.
Let's dive in.
So this was a recent release. This is April 5th of 2023. This book is available in Kindle Unlimited. Tropes are age gap, bearded hero, big city. He's a daddy with a little d. Ex's dad, virgin trope, vacation romance, single dad, one night stand, meet cute, forbidden, book boyfriend, instant attraction, lovers to friends to lovers.
Okay.
Do you think?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, they weren't really friends before they did it.
No, but even when they were friends, they were trying to be friends, but just kept jumping into bed together.
But they didn't at first. At first, they danced
So
around.
lovers to friends with benefits to lovers.
We'll just make up our own tropes today. This is book 2.
Lovers to friends who can't keep their hands off each other to lovers.
They could not.
No. There is a lot of steam in this book.
They banged a lot.
There was.
It was a lot of banging. It pops and it
This
pops
is not
often.
a light on the bang.
This is book 2 in the Virgin Society. They are kind of interconnected standalones. Put out percentage was 14%. Did you read the RSVP, which is book 1 in this series?
I did not.
Okay.
I read this completely as a standalone.
I did, and I guess that this is a series of books that she wrote early on in her career that she is re-editing and updating.
Okay.
So, I don't remember what name they were published under previous. Okay, so audiobook narrators for this book were Vanessa Edwin and Teddy Hamilton. So let's start with Vanessa first. I love her.
Loved her. Loved her. She was amazing. Great job with the book. Great job, narrating our heroine and the sub-characters throughout it. I thoroughly enjoyed listening to her chapters.
Yeah. If Vanessa Edwin reads it, I don't think I've ever heard a book with Vanessa Edwin that I was like, she's kind of cringy. I don't like her. I love everything she reads and performs.
Yes, agreed.
Okay, so Teddy Hamilton, who typically is a fan favorite. He narrates the book Wild, which is one of my all-time favorite books, and I absolutely love him as the narrator in that book. But Wild's kind of this fun, quirky, playboy, flirty character. Nick, in this book, is an older, more mature gentleman with a little bit of a rough side, but successful businessman who's a daddy. And a dirty talking daddy. Teddy Hamilton is not a dirty talking daddy. It just didn't work.
Now, I am a take it or leave it with Teddy Hamilton. He's not one that if he's reading it, I have to listen to it.
Same
kind of narrators. There's a few, let's just say Shane East, he could read the frickin' phone book
Sebastian
and I would listen
York
to it for hours on end.
Aiden Snow. Let's make a list.
Yes. So I would agree that I just don't feel like he read it well. I just don't think he was the right narrator pick for this. Um, it was fine. The chapters I listened to were okay, but I felt like he was a little too bro than
Yeah,
a father,
I think
like a little more mature, and from a business perspective, because even though Nick, the main character, our hero, he didn't grow up with a lot. He made his company from his own from the start. Like he built his company, but he's savvy, he's smart, and he has established himself in the world. So he has developed a finesse about him from his experience that I don't think Teddy
he
I
didn't
don't think
convey
Teddy's the
that.
right pick to narrate that.
Well, and
I just don't think he's the right voice for that.
here's my other piece on this, and it's a regional thing. So, Nick's character grows up on Long Island, and his born and bred mom and dad are Long Island. He has a brother who's Long Island. Now, while Nick has left the city of New York, has left Long Island and lives in Britain, and I suspect that given, and we'll talk about it a little bit, like what his past was like and his job and everything like that, he shucked the Long Island accent pretty early on, so he fit in. But there were times when Dad was speaking in the book,
Mm-hmm.
and Dad had no accent.
Right.
And if you're a lifelong person that lives in Long Island, I would find it really odd that you didn't have even just a tiny bit of that Long Island, New York cut to your voice.
And I would agree, because it's not even addressed in the book that he, like, there's no like, oh, I lost it, like, so you almost expect. I didn't pick up on that. I just kind of read it and listened to it, like, but I would say now that you bring that up, I'd be like, yeah, no, this character probably should have that a little bit of that accent.
And I think it just really comes to like that whole theater background, characterization, like knowing
Right.
who he, so it's just a performance thing. It isn't anything else. Like it's just simply a
Right.
performance.
And I would say for the audiobook listeners, listen, this is just our take on Teddy's performance.
Right.
You could love it.
Yeah.
He gives a solid performance. I and I don't think the
Well,
way this character was the his voice was the right
well,
one
let's
for it.
talk about Nick's character and who he is as a character. Maybe that'll help kind of see where we're coming from with him. Um, so Nick is a super successful venture capitalist that owns an investment venture capital firm in London. And he's a hard worker. Like later in the book, he divulges some secrets of his life and how he ended up with his son David, because there's kind of some incestual Upper East Side New York feels to this whole romance, like a little Gossip Girly feel. Like
Well, I think it's
everybody was
also within
connected.
that, in the families of Nick's son David, the mother,
Yeah,
and Layla slash Lola's character,
yeah,
um, her family, they all come from money. So
right.
you expect like kind of this, you have to
Well,
like get married and breed within
yeah.
this
So
kind.
he's a teen. He's 17 when he gets David's mother's pregnant. Or maybe he's a freshman in college. I mean, he's very young, 17, 18 years old. The grandparents raise the son basically while the mom and the dad go to college. They get married after college, and then they realize that like we don't work. And
Mm-hmm.
David at the time was working as like a waiter or a caddy at the country club in which David's mother's family was members. And um, so that's part of how Layla slash Lola, for this I'm going to call her Layla, didn't realize that David was related to Nick, because here's the deal. David has a different last name than his
Mm-hmm.
dad, Nick.
He has his
And
mother's last name.
Layla, she sort of dated David, but they were really more friends.
Yeah, they didn't. Yeah, like, and they dated for such a short period of time, um, and they didn't. They didn't do a whole lot
No.
in their relationship. Now, there is another element. So there's a lot of like name play going on situations, and the same happens for Layla and Lola. I'm going off course, but and the reason we keep saying this is because um our heroine Lola is basically her stage name for her company and her brand. She goes by Lola for her brand, but her real name is Layla, and that's a choice because of some stuff that happens in her past, and she becomes um there's a certain notoriety and a not positive notoriety
Yeah, it's a tabloid notoriety. It's, kind of the
with
Lauren
her
Bobbitt
given
style
name.
effect. Famous
uh,
for being a victim.
yes. So there's also how Nick doesn't realize that it's his son's friend because she's the first time Nick and Layla meet. They meet at a work conference. So she's going by her business name.
Right.
So there's a lot of like, which actually, and it's, we're explaining it very technically. And it can sound like if I was listening to this episode, I'd be like, okay, yeah, no, I have no mental capacity for that or space. That's not my jam. But the way that Lauren Blakely writes this, completely intrigued. Like I was on the edge of my seat waiting for the reveal because of how the anticipation of that, like, it's coming. And then when you finally put pieces together, because
Well, but
I,
Lauren herself doesn't typically write an overly angsty book either. And as things were building, I felt like it was either going to go, and that's why I was on the edge of my seat. I felt like it was either going to go like really angsty, off the charts, not quite feel like Lauren Blakely, or it was just going to be this throwaway comment and it didn't even matter. And so why did we use that trope? But man, she wove this story and gave us these
mm-hmm.
breadcrumbs. And like, seriously, I felt like Hansel being thrown in the oven when
No, and
she
there was,
dropped it, because I was like, what?
well, yeah, because there's a couple reveals throughout the book. There's the reveal of our main characters realizing who the other one is and their real relation to each other.
Well, before we get
And
to that, let's talk about their one night stand and their first meet.
all
Because
right, let's do it.
he's a keynote speaker, a last minute sub keynote speaker at this investment conference that Layla is attending. And she's attending it because she has a makeup app that teaches you tutorials to do your makeup, but also has like a Instagram
Social element to it.
social element to it. So you can crowdsource colors and all this kind of stuff. And it's fun, it's creative. I like how Lauren Blakely kind of took existing tech but made it a little more whimsical and fun. And Nick's giving a speech about like investing in tech and what financiers are looking for. After his thing is done, and she's entranced through the entire
Oh, well,
keynote.
and we should also say they noticed each other at the conference part because he just wasn't there for just the conference. He was there to do another element of the conference, like a private group kind of training or master session, if you will. And they noticed each other at different times. So there was this like attraction across the room. And then he is switched up to give the speech. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah.
So after the speech is done, she approaches him and is
Oh,
like,
during the speech, she makes some moves during the
she
speech
does.
to reinforce the attention.
She does. And it was like there was so much chemistry. There was so much electricity between these two that like
Mm-hmm.
these pages sparked. And that's just it. Like I was desperate for the next page, the next scene, the next conversation between these two
Yes.
because there was such an intensity to this writing that from the very get-go, I was all freaking in.
And and yes, we can call it the banter, but I feel like it's deeper than just saying the words, the banter between them, because it was almost like this vocabulary dance that they did. Like,
Yeah.
like conversational dance. It wasn't just like, when I think banter, it's like back and forth witty. This was like a tango, like a tango in a conversation.
Yeah. And there was a lot of eye connection and a lot of like so much steam between the two of these characters. Um, okay, so they both agree it is one night. There's bagels, there's coffee, and there's a moment where each almost thinks about like changing phone numbers or anything like that, especially because, and as we said in this book, Layla is a virgin. She does not tell him she's a virgin until he figures it out. Awkward one night stand to lose your virginity, but whatever. But it worked, and she wasn't like, the virginity was not handled like it was this gift or creepy or weird.
Yeah, she had a maturity about it, and I think through this whole book, they both had a certain maturity. Like, obviously, well, I shouldn't say obviously. One of the things I liked about this book was their conversations were mature. This wasn't, even though Nick is 41 and Layla's what, like 22 or
No,
something.
she's 26 because she's 2 years older than David. Oh, so no, so she's 24. No. 24.
Yeah.
He's 22,
yeah.
She's 24.
So, but because of their life experiences, they both have maturity about them. So I think that was handled really well in quite a bit throughout the book.
So there's a meet cute several weeks later, like they've been thinking of each other, kind of reliving their moments, and Nick has an opportunity with his brother that is moving him back to New York. And even as he's making this choice to come back to New York, he thinks, will I get to run into Layla? And he actually has emailed her or messaged her something because they've been flirty texting or something.
Okay, can I just read one of, like,
sure.
I have to read one of the quotes from, I think this is during this flirty time, because he becomes kind of like obsessed with her in all the best ways.
So
like,
obsessed.
He just cannot get enough. Like, he's infatuated with her and captivated, unexpectedly captivated. He just doesn't realize. So he basically he makes an account on her app. Anyways, they've been going back and forth. They are texting pictures. And one of them is, he's like, look at you. You're a fucking goddess. I don't know how I'm going to last through dinner with you, because they're trying to make plans to meet up for dinner when he comes into town. And then she says, you'll make it through dinner because you enjoy foreplay so much. She knows me well already. I really fucking do. I say, I amend that statement, personalize it, with you, beautiful, with you. And I think that, like, that line, you will because you enjoy foreplay so much, like, captures so much about Nick's character.
Yeah.
Because he does. This is not about just getting to the bedroom. I mean, because they get to the bedroom a lot in this book, but
he's a caregiver. He is a caregiver. He is a protector. It's an unexpected protector. And they're both so driven. They're both so smart. They don't need each other to fix them. So there's this already mutual professional respect between the two of them. And we have this meet cute that happens when they finally realize that David connects them and who each other is. And throughout all of this, David is starting a charity, an animal charity, and he wants to have a fundraiser. And both Layla and Nick agree to work on it together. They're gathering the prizes. And there's a line, and this is my line from this book. Nick says to Layla, my heart hurts when I'm with you, but not with you. Like, there was so much pining and yearning on both their sides. And then they do make the step to cross and decide to, like, sleep together. And the whole time they're like, we have to tell David. Well, they just keep waiting. And I thought it was going to be so many times that he was going to figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, but David had his own stuff going on, so it was like that was the perfect distraction. I also really just appreciated that, yeah, this started as a one night stand and they had incredible chemistry. And over that night, they still have these conversations and kind of get to know each other without a lot of detail. But as the book progresses, little things they know it's almost like they see each other. They don't know exactly all of the history and everything that's going on, but they see something in each other that's like, no, I understand. Oh, here's that statement, and I know there's more behind the statement, and they'll share it at some point.
Yeah.
Kind of feel.
Well, and this book was Stolen Nights and Secrets, but also swoon and chemistry
Mm-hmm.
and intensity. And there's a piece, and we didn't even really talk about much about Layla and her relationship with her mother that really plays into some of the choices and decisions that she has to make in this book. And I don't want to spoil it, but I felt like, and even also with Layla's friends, because she has this group of
Mm-hmm.
friends that are the Virgin Society, and they're a hoot.
I love them.
They're a
They
hoot.
make just the right amount of appearance, and you get to know all of them. Um,
Yeah. Well, and like Layla with her mom, like she tries to handle her mom, but she's not really handling her mom. There was just some really cool pieces. If you had asked me 18 months ago, do you like Lauren Blakely's books? I'd have been like, yeah, they're okay. They're okay. But I read the RSVP and I've now read this book, and I will say I like Lauren Blakely, like loudly now. Like now I'm going to start screaming about her books because the way this book was written, way the RSVP was written, they're just so good.
yes. Eh, The other thing, without giving anything away, is I thought the way that the third act was handled, there's a lot I'm not saying in that to not spoil anything, was really interesting, a different approach, and I really liked the maturity of it.
Yeah, and big emotions.
Big emotions. There's a few times I was like tearing up.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
And we're not even talking about Layla and her past and what defined her and how she is and her interactions with her mom because wow. It was just this
the
book was so
bench.
good.
The bench.
Oh, we're not talking about the bench. Um,
I almost lost it. Joe looked at me and he's like, "Are you okay?" I'm like,
nope, not okay. Um, so if you are curious about, we did not do a quick shot on the RSVP, but I did do a Patreon exclusive should you read it on the RSVP, and you can find that over on our Patreon. So if you want to know what I thought of that book, which it's an age gap, a virgin, I loved it. And it's Dad's best friend. So you can find that over on our Patreon. But honestly, you guys, check this book out.
yes,
It's worth it.
it is worth it. I mean, and yes, there's some angst, but this is not a high angst kind of book.
Mm-mm.
Like this is a, oh, reveals are going to happen, and you're like, okay, oh my god, this is going to be so good. Like,
Yeah, and it is a little longer book. I mean, I think it's like 330 pages, but it didn't feel long.
no,
It was so well written and
not at
just
all.
the story moved, great characters. I think it's a must read.
Go read it.
Go read
Pick
it.
it up.
Anyway, Carolina, thank you so much for joining me for this quick shot of romance.
Thank you for recommending the book.
You're welcome. Until next time, everyone, happy reading.
Find us on Instagram at Buzzing About Romance or on Twitter at Buzzing Romance. If you like the podcast, please leave a review. If you'd like to support us directly, join the Bookcase and Coffee Patreon and receive exclusive content only available to Patreon members. Check out bookcaseandcoffee.com for our on-the-shelf show notes.